Hey, everybody. We're back with a
We're
live
back.
stream. It's me and it's Dan.
Hello.
I'm glad I didn't wear that shirt today. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, well, that would have been awkward.
I mean, it's happened before, but again, it just makes us look like we're in some sort of a club.
Club is a nicer way of saying cult, right?
Cult. Yes, yeah, that's what I meant. When I say, yes, that's right. That's right. No, no. We sacrifice people at the full moon as a club.
Yeah, it's a
It's
it's a
totally
hobby.
different.
It's a hobby.
All right. So we're here with I'm gonna press the buttons here. New iPhones. And really, the story here is I get the new iPhones before the general public gets them. And wouldn't it be nice for us to show them to you? And I got them yesterday. We set the live stream for today. Obviously, the review embargo drops, and then I get my review units because I'm sort of a second wave reviewer there. And but you don't have them yet, so this is a great opportunity for everybody out there to ask us about, and I will also show you the new iPhones so you can see them and you can get some questions answered. Now, I've only had them for 24 hours, so I have a limited amount of time with them, but I have spent every waking moment of the last 24 hours, which doesn't include, 8 hours of sleep, covering these. So let's get started. Dan, do you have any questions about and then people
Well,
in the YouTube stream, if you want to put your questions in the YouTube stream, we'll look at them there too. So that's great.
let's let's start with an overview, Jason. Can you run down what models you have?
Yes, I have and actually this particular shot of the overhead shot is good for this. I have
One of your boxes is upside down, by the way.
aren't they all? I have this one. Oh, where is it? It's an empty box. Where is it? The answer is it's over here. I'm actually using it for shots too. This is the midnight, no, black. What is it? What's the black
Space
Pro?
Black.
Space Black Pro. That's what
Space
this
Black.
is. Yes. So this is the Space Black Pro.
hmm
I have the silver, it looks like 11. I just want to make sure what it says. Oh, it says this is purple. It is the least purple of anything ever, but they claim it's purple. I don't believe them. And here we have, that is the deep purple iPhone Pro Max. So those are our adventurers today. These are our contestants in the
Okay.
on the desk, on the wood desk here. And in fact, I have, this is going to be really good. I'm going to pick this one up and we're going to switch over to handheld because, yeah, I'm using
Oh.
it as a camera. That's continuity camera in action.
Oh.
So we can get in close if we need to on these as well. So that's what I got. What
Okay.
else? What else you want to know, Dan?
Well, okay, so I want to know this because I know you talked about a little bit of this on upgrade, but I'm also curious what your experience has been. Have you had to deal with the eSIM problem yet?
The eSIM
Transferring
problem.
your stuff? Or like, well, you're
Um,
using different phones. This not
so
everybody will have this issue, but yeah,
yeah, well, so these are all eSIM in the U.S. These are all eSIM only,
right, right.
which is Apple, typical Apple, right? Of like, well, if Apple goes eSIM only, then the rest of the world has to go eSIM only, right? Also, I decided that it's a tradition that I bring a cup of tea with me for these live streams.
Smart. Yeah, I've got my seltzer because it's usually later in the day here.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's noon now, so I probably should not be drinking tea, but I am. Turns out on upgrade, I actually said that I was going to have to convert to an eSIM. Turns out I already did. Already
Ah,
did.
you've heard it here first.
I was like, where is the convert to eSIM feature? And I thought, wait a second. And I popped open the SIM tray of my iPhone 13 mini, and guess what? There was no SIM
Oh,
card
that's
in it.
that's a ghost story, Jason. And the SIM tray was
It was already
empty.
empty. It had been assumed bodily into heaven and left me here on Earth with an eSIM ghost. So, yeah. So in setup, Apple has gotten so much better at setup. So, as part of the setup process, it's bring your phone close together and take a picture of the thing on the screen, and then I'm going to transfer. And at one point, it just says, "Do you want to transfer your eSIM?" or I think what it says is you want to transfer your phone number, which is what they mean. That's like code,
It's better than
non-jargony
yeah,
code for it.
exactly. People will be like eSIM. What's an eSIM?
I
eSIM?
I didn't even know I had one,
Mm-hmm.
said
Mm-hmm.
me. And then that sat there for a couple of minutes, and that was it. It was super easy to do. The question's going to be like, if I want to transfer it to another one of these phones and then back,
Can you keep doing that? Yeah.
how will I run into a, you seem to be a phone hopper and AT&T doesn't like that, and you have to, stop
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. I
And
will
then I
say,
have to call them. I don't want
as
to. I don't want
somebody,
to call them.
I think I wrote this up on Six Colors over the past couple of years, but I've been using eSIM for several years now, and every year it's like the upgrade program. Every year it gets a little bit better because like the first year I had to like go to a store and scan like a QR code that they like physically brought out, and I was like, this is nonsense. Why do I have to do this? And then every year it got better to the point where last year I think I could just like go on like the customer chat and be like, I just want to move my eSIM to my new phone. And they're like, yep, here's the number you need. You're done. So I'm glad to hear that that continues to improve, especially since we have no SIM card slots to fall back on.
No, not in the U.S. anyway. So people who are watching can see the difference. I'm going to move this iPhone 14 out of the way, and I'm going to show you these two. This is space black and purple, and so
Mm-hmm.
you can see it. The purple, it is, and there's a story on Six Colors right now that's got a picture from the event that you can see the purple. Like, it's not purple,
Right.
but I would say that in
It's more of a
in many
sheen, it seems
circumstances,
like.
yeah, in many circumstances you won't notice, especially in very bright light. I found it kind of almost reads as a gray.
Hmm.
I would say it's, yes, a purple sheen on top of a space gray sort of thing. And we know our friend Mahir wrote in and said compare the space black to the purple edges side by side. I'm gonna try to hold these up and do it this way.
They're both very shiny.
They're both very shiny, and they're both similar. But again, I think the space black really is a black.
More
Uh,
than a space gray, which it
right,
was in
and
previous
and
years.
this
Yeah.
one, if you looked at it just for a moment, you would think space gray, and then you would realize space gray with just a little bit of purple in there.
Now,
And so it's a really different look. Like the space black is straight up. The stainless is really black, and then the
yeah.
back is, again, I would say a very dark gray. It's hardly piano black, but I would say it's darker than space gray. These silly names that we all have to deal with now, but you asked me here,
So,
so I answered.
looking at that now, I mean, sort of as you show off the profiles there, I'm curious if you happen to have your current 13 model handy, whatever your current phone
Well,
is.
my current phone's a 13 mini, so it's not
Okay.
gonna.
But what I wanted to know was
It's
specifically.
Let's look at how sad that is. There it is. It's the I like doing this move. I'm going to do it again. Hey, one of these things is not like the other. Goodbye. There it goes. It's gone. But
Uh,
I do have, actually, with me, uh, surprise plot twist. Two of last year's models.
so my curious question, looking at you showing up the profiles, especially when you turn it side by side, there is the camera bump
Yeah.
compared to last year's. Like, 'cause I'm looking when you turned that 13 Pro on its side, I was like, man, it's large. Am I not remembering how large the camera
No,
thing
it's
was last
larger.
year?
It
Okay.
is. It is definitely noticeably larger. Let me see if I can pry this thing out of the case just to be fair.
Because like that's
Um,
one thing I've had mine in the case for the last year. Just picking up my 13 Pro here, and even that I think I don't notice because the case has its own lip around it. But like, yeah, I mean the camera bump on this one is still pretty like it's pretty sizable. But I think I think the 14s is even bigger, right?
Yeah, let me go to my actual like continuity camera handheld model here, and I'll just compare them. Um, this is the new model, and it's definitely, I want to look at the height there, and this is the previous generation, and you can look at the height there, and I mean I think you can tell It's
Oh wow,
definitely
yeah, yeah. So I'm on a delay. I don't get to see
right
this
because
as
you're
fast
watching
as
the YouTube stream and
I'm
not
watching
me
the YouTube stream
live.
for that. But yeah, that is considerably
There,
more
I'm remaking
protuberating.
2001: A Space Odyssey on my desk, shot by shot.
Yeah. So that answers, I think, a question that some people had, though I think maybe not in our particular stream here, but about whether or not your cases will continue to work. And I think the answer is pretty clearly no. If you have
Big
an iPhone 13
no.
Pro Focus, that's not going to happen. Even though the phones are close to the same size, I think there's only small amounts of difference between their like width and like height and stuff. But yeah, that camera is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean it's noticeable. And as somebody who had the mini phone, so I had the smaller bump from last year on the smaller phone. It's pretty dramatic. I think this may be peak bump though, peak camera bump. There are
Peak
rumors that
peak bump.
they're gonna try to do something a little bit different next year with
Right.
periscope technology. Somebody's asking, by the way, if continuity camera works better when it's plugged in. I'm not sure it does. The reason it's plugged in though is when it's plugged in, you can also do a screen capture. So I thought one of that we could do
Mm.
today, if people are curious, is um, look at. So this is the screen I'm showing now of this model. So if you're curious about like the dynamic island, I can actually show you.
Ah.
I'm playing this song. I can flip it up in there, and now you can see up at the top the dynamic island is going. And I mean, Apple's demoed all this, and the problem is that third-party apps only just got the beta of the API for this, and it's not in the shipping version, so it's going to be a little while before third-party apps adopt this, which is why Dynamic Island's going to be a story that changes over the next few months. It's gonna take some time for us to really understand like the ramifications of our third-party apps doing it, but we've got this playing in the background. If I tap on this, it's going to bring it to the foreground. Um, I'm gonna do. Should I turn up the volume? No. Okay. Well, anyway, it's not playing, but it stays up in there, and then if I tap and hold, it's playing with no audio is the problem. So it's not showing you a waveform, which is one of the kind of fun things about it. But you get this little pop up. That's part of the now playing API. So if I go over here to the Flophouse in Overcast, and I start playing it. Same thing happens. Overcast, Marco didn't actually do anything in Overcast to support this. It just
It just works.
works with that because the expanded widget is essentially the
Like the
same
lock
that you'd see
screen.
on the lock
Yeah.
screen, right?
Yeah.
So their Apple is sort of rolling all of this stuff together. So some apps will inherit it, but only in these certain circumstances. And I can,
Right.
and what the net result of that is that if I want to be over in a totally different app, then I can say, here's the home, and yay, here it is, and oh look, I'm also still listening to the Flophouse,
Mhm.
so that's nice. Let's see. So anyway, I don't have a lot to show on Dynamic Island right now.
Right.
There's only just one palm tree and a coconut.
And when it's not doing anything, is it just it's just like a little oblong
It
essentially?
it oh yeah, it's reduced to its. I mean, you can actually see it here when I'm in that it's just reduced to a notch at that
Hmm.
point.
Hmm.
Just a
Hmm.
notch.
We're all used to notches. We
That's
there's no notch.
you guys, yeah, from Minecraft, right? That's
That's no, let's not go there.
all right.
Okay.
Back to the overhead view. And if I lock this phone, I don't even know what's going on with this. I guess I've got my other view back too. Yeah. All right. It's continuity camera. How does it work? And captures and all sorts of other things.
Yeah. Well, we do have some questions. I'm seeing some questions in the YouTube
Okay.
chat. Somebody,
Yes, please.
Stefan asks, how much better is the selfie cam? I don't know if we're equipped to say that, but so they added, what is it, autofocus, right, in the front facing camera, I believe, in the 14s this year. I think that was the big difference.
Yeah. It does it'll do a focus. It's I mean everybody's experience is going to be different, but it is it's better, right? Like, I mean, it's all very incremental, but the idea that you could actually tap to focus on the front facing and get a better, composition for whatever your selfie camera shot is. I don't think I have taken enough selfies to say more than that at this point.
A listener, Dan, not me, but a
Oh, not
listener,
you.
Dan,
Okay. All right.
asks if you think this is sort of an opinion question that's ancillary. Do you think the changes to AppleCare with unlimited repairs negates the need for a case? That's kind of I guess that's probably your mileage may vary because you still got to pay for the accident repairs. You still don't want to break your phone. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to take the confusing last year's model and send it away.
To the cornfield.
It does where it's going to just live over there and think about what it's done. I don't know. I am the last person in many ways to ask about Apple Care because I very rarely pay for Apple Care and just take the risk and use my phone. That's right. I don't pay for Apple Care and I have a phone without a case that I've used for a whole year. So
Heaven or fend.
I know, but I have heard people say that maybe they've designed the Apple Care Plus stuff now to be a little, just do it without a case. And look, the truth is, how many times you've broken your iPhone over the years, and if it's a lot, then assume that will continue, and if it's never, then probably that will continue. I think fundamentally, you break your phone or you don't.
Hey, I dropped my watch on the floor for the first time this year and broke that, so that was a real bummer. Also, I'll point out, I've never broken my own phone. I did break an ex-girlfriend's phone, and I had to replace it. So, that those things happen.
So that when we do the math equation for how often you break a phone, we got to factor in a different.
Exactly.
Are you less careful with other people's phones? Are you a phone ruiner?
Apparently, that is the case.
Is it possible to use focus mode to turn off the always on display? The answer is the sleep focus turns it off.
Oh, good. Okay, but that's it.
There's
no way to.
So how do you turn off the always on display? You switch it off in settings.
Yep.
You walk away from it with an Apple Watch.
If you have a watch, yes.
And it knows you went away and knows that you must not be nearby to see it, and so it will dim itself then. It's like a little dog you left outside when you went inside, and dogs just like, they're not coming back.
So
and then sleep focus will do it too. But that's it. You can't control it as far as I know.
This is maybe is there a noise in the woods question. If you've put it face down on a desk.
If you put it in your pocket or you put it face down, it turns off.
It's like trying to figure out if the fridge light is still on. Yeah, okay. So that makes sense. But there's no way, so focus modes won't do it, and there's no controls for it. I don't think anybody expects that, right? Because Apple was never going to provide like a switch that's like always on mode. I mean, they do for the watch, but I didn't think they were going to do it for the phone.
I think it would be great if they added that functionality to focus modes to say turn off the always on display in certain modes, because that is a kind of focus you might want.
Mm-hmm.
And you are controlling what notifications show up, right?
Sure.
And they show up on that always on display. So I could see a scenario, and they can control what lock screen appears, because those are tied to focus modes. So it's not that far a leap to say focus modes should also actually be able to determine whether that always on display stays on or not. But right now, that's not how they're handling it.
Mm-hmm. This is a question I think that's directly related to the dynamic island, although I think the answer is no. Does Apple News My Sports work in 16 or waiting for 16.1 for the live activities widget? I believe live activities as a whole is not really, but it's an Apple app, so I don't know. That's quite a good question.
Oh, My Sports, and I think my guess is no. I haven't tried that one because I have not used that feature.
Now? Do you want to?
I mean, I'll just, hey,
we'll do it live.
There's my keyboard. Let's switch to a little more stable island. And let me see. So there's a My Teams function, you're saying?
I think that's the one that gives you the live sports
right
updates.
Okay.
But I don't know how it works.
Yeah, this is going to be really bad. I don't think it does it at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't see it popping up for me, so I would have to go find it, and I'm not sure even where that is.
Yeah, favorites suggested by Siri.
Oh, there it is. Hold on. If I scroll down enough, I said it does give me a follow my teams. There is a my sports option, but it's just in the today view if you scroll down far enough. Because mine pops
Oh
up
yeah,
follow
my
your
sports.
teams.
Follow your teams. Get started. Got it. Turn it on.
Turn it on. Okay.
All right. It already knows.
Well, because
Great.
there's a thing in
How does
TV
it
already.
know? Yeah,
Well, TV,
it's the
the
same.
TV app has it. Yeah. I turned it on. I said done, and nothing changed. So I don't actually know. It is telling me that the Red Sox are playing tonight at 7.
Yeah, this
Also,
is a good.
the Patriots, which I don't care about.
Yeah, it's a good question. Everybody can see my choices there. The Giants are playing the Dodgers tomorrow. Cal at Notre Dame. Oh boy, that's going to be ugly. And Brantford Bees at Arsenal on Sunday at 4 a.m. Pacific. Oh, the joys of English soccer on the West Coast.
Look forward to those live updates.
So, I mean, that's a good question. They could build it in. I am skeptical that Apple News is going to be pushing out live sports scores like that. They totally could. I almost wonder if they won't because they really would like to encourage third parties like the MLB app to build that in. But that's a great idea. Also, they would have to decide which one to display.
Right. That's an interesting point about if you have a number of things using, presumably there's something in the API that like gives primacy to one thing over another or lets stuff break in and then go away or something like that. But it's a little different from notifications, right? Which is all stack up. And then you can sort of dismiss stuff, but like not everything can be in the dynamic island at one time. The dynamic island is small. It's like one of those little islands from the New Yorker cartoons where there's two guys marooned in like one palm tree, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody
Gilligan's
asks
Island, basically.
Yeah.
How do you get away with a red shirt?
Gilligan's Island
Monroe asks. And the answer is Red Sox, Boston. He's allowed. Harvard, Harvard. There's lots of red in Boston. It's okay, but
it's a random track shirt too.
It is also its branding.
Yeah.
Well done. It means you're a red shirt, which is bad news for you.
Bad news for me. How's the size adjustment from the Mini to the 14 Pro? Ever consider the Max or Pro is the perfect size?
Who wrote that?
That was Ali in the chat asked
Shame on you. How is the size difference between my beloved iPhone 13 mini and the iPhone 14 Pro that I've been using for the last day? The answer is it's so heavy and big. I don't like it. I would never, ever, 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 ever in a bazillion years go to the Plus or the Max. That said, here's where I'll say I would also not go to the 14 because if I'm going to go to a bigger phone, I want to get more out of it. And I think the additional cameras, which I've only tested a little bit, but again, I'm looking forward to using more of, and the dynamic island and the thing that was the big shocker, because even though I used these phones last year for my reviews, I've settled in on that mini ProMotion. Like you forget ProMotion and then you use it and it made me a little dizzy. I'm like, oh my God, everything is smoothly sliding around and scrolling on the screen and it's a lot. So if I were to go, the one that I'm actually shooting from right now, this Pro 14 would be the one that I would go to. But it is so big and heavy compared to my Mini that, fortunately, I just bought the Mini, so that's not gonna that's gonna be my personal phone for a while.
This is my favorite question.
But they make all the kinds, right? It's just like they make chocolate and vanilla,
sure.
so that I can have the good ice cream and you can have whatever crappy ice cream that you want. No, that's the saying. I don't actually. I don't have a preference between chocolate and vanilla. That's why I'm a monster. But mint chip for life. Anyway, this is the ice cream podcast now. Hello.
I enjoy this question because I don't think it's been asked before. But listener Dan asks, is the flashlight seem brighter on the 14 Pro compared to the 13 Pro? First time I think we've ever been asked a flashlight question.
Flashlight question.
Well, they changed the flash, right? Like there was something where they talked about how much better the flash was in this version. I assume Barry Allen versus Wally West, but I don't quite.
Obviously.
Oh
Dan's a little choppy with the audio. I don't know why that is. Interesting. Um, let's see. Let's lock it. Oh, here's a. Okay, I'm gonna have to disconnect, which I don't want to do. I was gonna show the always on display, but I think I'm gonna have to wait for that one. Um, what I. Oh, actually, I am gonna have to disconnect. Well, okay. Say goodbye to continuity camera for a minute. Um, and I'm gonna turn on the flashlight. And oh my god, everybody, it's madness. I don't know if I have another. Can I? I'm gonna compare it to the 13 mini that I've got here, and then I'm just gonna let the world, you know, they seem about the same to me. Honestly, I think that for flashlight mode, it maybe is not trying to overpower
Do
that.
anything fancy?
Keep in mind the flashlight mode has to stay on all the time, so if they're doing a peak brightness, it may
Mm-hmm.
actually not be a great idea. While I'm here, okay, so I'm holding this, and I'm gonna lock it, and you can see there we go. Now we're in always on mode, which I've seen a lot of people, and now I'm bringing it back up. I've seen a lot of people say um, it's brighter than they thought, and that doesn't. I don't agree. It's dimmer than I thought. Let me set my widget right. There we go. Set as wallpaper pair. I hate that step. It to me it seems dimmer. So but you can judge for yourself. There it is. You can still see the astronaut. I tap and it all kind of brightens up and even zooms in a little bit. And if I go to this one, you know, like that rainbow is a lot darker. I don't know. It's very strange. It's going to take some getting used to, but it's a lot. It's a lot. Why won't it? See, I'm still on tap and hold, and anyway, it's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I've got a photo there, and I put it to sleep, and it's pretty dim, especially in brightish light. Like you can see it, and the colors are right, but it's really subtle. Like they're not because it's going to kill battery life if they make it too bright. And there it
Right,
comes
right. I
back.
mean, unlike the watch, where I think they just can like go into like super simple black and like monochromish modes at times. There's a lot more that has to get done to convey that. But I agree with you. It seems brighter than I would have expected.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Brant asks, is there a noticeable difference in the bezels between the 13 Pro and 14 Pro, or much ado about nothing?
In the bezels. Well, I can't turn this one on because I think its battery is dead. But that's the max, and I have the Pro out there. I would say I didn't notice yesterday. I didn't notice any difference.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I,
I
I
think
feel like
it's
these phones, although they're not exactly the same size,
kind of the same.
are almost not noticeably different. Oh, I should show you. So the here in the dynamic island, not only can the people on the video actually see the infrared blasting that I
Yeah.
can't see, which
Yep.
is super cool, but you can see the lock mark there. And when I look like this, then it unlocks and then it goes away. And that's all kind of happening around the dynamic island now because it's doing that for all sorts of status stuff gets marked up in the dynamic island now, connecting your AirPods. All that stuff floats around up there. It actually makes I would say it makes the notification, like ephemeral notifications, not notification center, but the more general notifications, way more consistent than they used to be. I mean, Apple's been headed down this
Right.
path for a while, and I think those notification little
Massage
pill
the
things
AirPods. Yeah,
were
I
all
say
headed
exactly.
in that direction. But I think that
Yep.
that this sort of unifies them. It's pretty nice.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's see here. What other questions do we scrolling back through the chat? A lot of comments, not a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, it's just that's the great thing about this not being a comic convention is
Okay.
that you can have your comment that's not a question and nobody will
Uh,
probably get angry at you.
Agent Monroe asks, Does the bigger camera hump feel noticeable adding weight to the top? I.e., does it feel more top heavy in the hands than the previous?
Doesn't to me. But again, I am coming from the perspective of somebody who thinks these are all heavy because I was using the mini. I feel like the big weight that and maybe this is part of Apple's trick. So here's last year's model and this year's model. I think the trick is that they both have the stainless steel band, and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
like spreads some of the weight across evenly across the whole
Yeah.
piece of hardware. And I think it makes a difference because the aluminum band obviously is a lot lighter than the stainless band.
I feel like it's that, they do that with the swords in the movies sometimes, where it's like, the sword with the perfect balance. And honestly, I feel like the phone, is pretty well.
Yeah.
I've never noticed even it feeling that top heavy for me on the previous models.
Yeah, I would say if it is, it's not very much, and it's not so you would notice too much. I feel like the increased depth is much more noticeable visually.
Yeah.
I saw Jesse, friend of the show, Jesse Friedman, in the chat asking about the purple and how we're feeling about it. You know, I think the purple is really nice and subtle, and I think the danger with something like purple is that if it was too in your face on the Pro model, if it was too in your face, I think it would turn a lot of people off, especially purple.
Yeah.
Like because purple is a color unlike a blue, your blues, your reds, or greens, where I think a lot of people.
Divisive.
Yeah, it is a little divisive, and it really stands out. And so having it be subtle, I think they did a nice job in that it is visible, but you could also miss it. If you're somebody who was hoping Apple would provide, like me, who was hoping Apple would provide a more standout color on the Pro model, that's why I'm disappointed in Deep Purple. Is not that Deep Purple is bad. It's actually very subtle and kind of cool. It's just that I wish that they made a bright color. It doesn't have to be the purple one.
I mean,
And that's why,
what
like, I was so happy about the blue last year in the 14 line because this is a really nice blue. I like it a lot, and it's not super bright, but it's recognizably blue, and it's very nice. And they don't want to do that in the Pro phones for some reason. Which, fair enough. I think that giving people the option might be nice, and maybe it's just that you can't do something that looks bright that looks good on this back because they've got the matte back instead of the shiny back.
right. I mean, but like,
yeah.
what about like the deep purple versus like the lavendery purple on the 14? Like, honestly, I think the deep purple, to my eyes, looking at the stream, looks nicer than the 14's purple.
Oh, I agree. I mean, this 14, it's
It looks
really hard
white.
to see.
It reads as white to me from across
It
the
does,
camera.
and yet, and I, color is not my strongest point, but if I get this in the exactly right angle, you can tell it's not really white. It's something else, but it's so. I mean, this is my daughter has an iPhone 11 purple, and it's pretty subtle.
Mm-hmm.
This is way more than that. So, I that's actually one of my great disappointments with this entire product line is it feels like Apple took a step back in terms of the colors that there are other than the product red, there are no real bold colors on the 14.
The 14, yep.
They're all kind of boring. And then over here, you get the deep purple, which is a nice. I mean, I give Apple a hard time and say that they just have decided that the Pro phone's color is boring. This is a nice boring. I wish they would also do a bright, but like they only did the product red really in interesting in this whole group. I think the most interesting. I would have a hard time choosing between deep purple and the space black. I would probably personally go space black. And on the 14, I'd probably go midnight. Because I like the darker products and I think that they're kind of interesting, but that's also just sort of in absence of a fun, bright color. And as previously established, red is not going to work in my house. So this is what we're left with.
No, I'm with you on that. I think they looked better the last couple of years. They did a better job with colors than this year.
Oh, Brantz asks, how do regular notifications act when dropping in as banner for notifications? It's Notification Center. If you're using your phone, they drop in from the top down below the dynamic island. That's it. The dynamic island is not Notification Center. They're totally different and totally separate.
Rick asks if you've taken a 48 megapixel photo yet.
I haven't. That's that it's on my list. Although again,
You have to use Pro RAW for that, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that Austin Mann, is that his name?
Yep.
Did his review, and he has a downloadable Pro RAW image that he shot in the Scottish Highlands.
Oh,
that I'd recommend if you want to look at what it looks like. You can download that and actually open it up in ProRAW. Um, I get the distinct impression that nobody should do it unless you are a pro photographer. Like, you're losing all of the quad pixel thing, which is pixel binning. Like, the secret sauce of the 48 megapixel sensor is that Apple is actually using it to capture 4 times as much area per pixel, and blend it all together. And so you get better low light performance. If you want the detail, you can get it. But the fact that they put it in ProRAW only suggests to me that they know the audience for that, which is nobody except people who are sort of like pros who are very comfortable. Keeping in mind also it's a very large file.
I just
You know,
downloaded his because I was curious. He says they're mostly around 80 megapixels on average, running between 45 and 115. Also, his picture that he's got to download is a hairy Highland coo, and
it is.
that's a great image. And I say,
It
wow, you
is.
could really zoom in on
You
that
can zoom
sucker.
in on the little hairs on the cow's face. It's
Yeah,
great.
wow, that is
Yeah,
impressive.
and that's
I'll never
and
shoot that, but it's great.
and if you're in good lighting conditions and you are shooting raw, you're going to get it. The challenge rate is when the light gets bad. Having the larger bins to grab light is better for it. So I haven't, though, is the answer. I haven't do that. I will try that. I doubt that I'm going to tell anybody anything that Austin Mann has not already told people. I'm really interested in action mode. I also have not tried that
Mm-hmm.
yet. Action mode, it sounds to me like it's basically you do it if you have real serious action stuff that you want to shoot that is
Right.
going to just be unwatchable without it. It's not the standard stabilization, right? There's the standard video stabilization, and then there's action mode. And what they're doing with that is they're being way more aggressive. They're cropping so that they get a huge amount of space on the sensor so that as you're doing this, it's actually capturing those images in the sensor and can move the frame of what it's grabbing
Mm-hmm.
on the sensor. There's a lot going into that. It's not something you want to have on all the time, but I'm looking forward to seeing, like, because I've seen Apple's canned examples, but I want to see it
Sure. Right. Real
in
world.
real world with my own with my own shots. So we'll see. I have to figure out how I'm gonna do that. We always I always did all my iPhone samples walking the dog, and our dog died. So I don't actually know what I'm gonna do. Do people walk without a dog? I don't get
I
it.
do, but I actually sometimes have a baby strapped to me now.
Oh yeah, I used to do that. The babies are
Yeah.
fine. I don't know what happened to them. They got too big. I can't carry them
All right.
anymore.
Let's see. Brant's also asked, do you think the 14 Pro is still worth it over the 14, even with no intention to use the always on display? Yeah, it's or lock screen widgets, but keep in mind lock screen widgets are available on both,
Right.
on everything.
I think it's fair at this point to say that although I know a lot of our audience is people who upgrade every year, and if you're on the upgrade program, you get to upgrade every year. But if you're the kind of person who's asking, should I upgrade this year? I think that it implies you're not on the upgrade program, and it implies that you're not the person who just reflectively upgrades every year. And so to you, I will say, no, probably. Like
If you're coming from last year, you're
the
coming to a
pace,
13.
yeah,
No.
the pace of smartphone innovation has slowed to the point where you are not really going to miss anything if you skip a year or two, and then your upgrade is going to be that much because it is advancing. And if you roll together 2 or 3 years worth of updates, then you really got something. But I would say the number one reason, other than that, I mean, if it's time to buy a new phone, then these are the latest models, and there's a lot to be said for them. Even though you can buy last year's models and save some money, there's also you got to weigh the pros and the cons. Dynamic Island's really interesting, and I think that if you love the iPhone as a platform and you're a fan of third-party apps and you're like a really intense user of it, I think it's giving you a sniff of the future of the platform there, and that is the part that and the improved camera, like that might be a reason to update. But again, from last year's model, I mean that's a harder it's a harder case. I will say the 14, if you've got a 13, you don't update to the 14. It's like
Yeah,
I just don't.
unless you're on the
Save your
upgrade level.
money,
It's like,
do it
yeah,
next year or the year
next year
after.
is going to be a bigger upgrade.
There's
So-
so little that's changed in it that I would just go on stay on your regular cycle. But if you love the camera and want to push it, or are really interested in Dynamic Island stuff and like, oh, it's a new way to use the iPhone and I want to be in on that, well, you'll be in on the ground floor because, like I said, the third party apps aren't even out
yeah,
yet.
yeah. Friend of the site, Zach Knox asks, if you set a focus, does the icon in the status bar stay attached to the island or just next to the clock as usual? So you get a little like, right, you
Okay.
get your little emoji or icon or whatever.
All right.
We're gonna do it live. We're gonna find
I
out.
guess I'm going to go into work focus,
Work mode.
and it is over there in the corner.
Corner. Nobody puts work focus in the corner.
Nobody puts work focus in the island.
Well, that makes sense. If you're in the islands, you shouldn't be working. You should be relaxing.
Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
personal mode all day.
that is your answer. They just live. That's great. All the focuses are shooting off everywhere. I'm glad that didn't destroy everything we were doing, but that's what syncing is. Wojtek, I think, asks, is the regular Pro true black or more gray? I mean, decide for yourself. This is look, the side of it is like almost, I would say, like a piano black. It is super straight on black. The back, look, I mean, they've got the contrast there. This is that black, and this is basically that black. But then they've got the matte here, and a matte black that reflects light can look gray, right? Like that looks super gray. I would say it does not look like the space gray. And in fact, if we look at the purple here, and you put them together, you can see it's not quite the same. And this is a little darker, I would say. But oh yeah, look, and that's actually a really great view of the difference between purple and black right there.
Right.
You can tell, like I said, in the right light, you can tell. But it's, the pure black, deep black is only going to be visible in the stainless on the ring, and then on the camera bump.
There was a question about another notifications related question. It's kind of specific. Do notifications still come down over the Twitter input field and tweet button? Or have they been adjusted to not overlay content? I'm going to go ahead and guess nothing has changed. If you think something has changed, it has not changed.
By the way, I think this is space gray, and it is really light. So, but anyway, it's pretty much light. What was that question again, Dan?
But whether notifications come down over content and input, basically.
Oh,
the
Twitter,
over the Twitter.
The Twitter question. It depends on the app,
changed,
right? I mean,
probably.
notifications.
Yeah.
That's an iOS question, and like notifications come down, and that means there's content there. And if you don't want the notifications there, you swipe them out. That's what you have to do. And that's not any different. What they're not doing, and I would not be surprised if they tried to do this, what they're not doing with the dynamic island is like having it be a notification center holding bin where it shows you like you have 8 notifications waiting and you tap and then you visit. That is, notification center is not attached to the dynamic island at all at this point. Now, would they change that in the future? I mean, anything is possible. I think that, I'm sure they'll think about it, but for now, no.
Andreas has asked, the memory on the 14 Pro, do we know how much RAM it's got? I don't think they've said.
I don't know.
Until somebody runs the benchmarks.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody will tell you.
Several gigabytes.
I don't have an answer to that question.
Brent also asks if there's any noticeable Face ID angle improvements. Well, the iOS 16 supports Is that an iOS 16 thing? Landscape and Face ID? That is a thing. I don't remember if it was related to the phones or the iOS, but I think it's iOS. I think
Well, it just unlocked a landscape for me, so that's good.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it on my 13. Yeah, my 13 did it too, so it's an iOS thing. So
But,
I don't know about angles. I don't know. I don't have a lot of trouble with Face ID angle, I guess, but sometimes I don't know that.
Well, look,
there's not enough change probably in that front-facing camera to necessarily really
failed there and worked
I don't think
there.
It's going to change.
So, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me see. Anything else? A lot of
discussion
about
David Shaw
photos.
makes a good point. If you're planning on getting in car crashes, then absolutely upgrade to the latest models. But I'm not responsible for your car crash injuries if you don't, based on my advice. I'm just saying that that's the feature that's in there. And if that motivates you, then great. I think we all need to be realistic that most of this stuff is happening on a 2-3 year cycle, and that's okay. I know, unless you're in the subscription plan, in which case you get the latest and greatest, which is great.
Here's my question prompted by your discussion with Mike on Upgrade this week.
Mm-hmm.
The Pro has the new dual frequency GPS. Does that make any right? Doesn't it have the new two L5?
Yeah, do they both have it or just the
I
Pro?
think just the Pro. I'm gonna check the page, but I'm pretty sure. I think maybe just the Pro has it.
Yeah. I don't know. That is you're going to love my answer to this one, Dan. I have not left the house with the
What? That
iPhone
doesn't
yet.
seem
So.
right. That doesn't seem right. I did like your point though that they want you to scan the buildings, which I've had happen a bunch of times now, but only when I'm downtown in the city. It's like, oh, take a look at those buildings, see if you can help us figure out where you are. It's like if I recognize the buildings, I would know where I am.
Yeah, that's the worst. Yeah, you're right. That would be a field trip that I might have to make of like just down in San Francisco somewhere where the little dot pings around because it has no idea where you are.
Oh yeah, always the worst. Whenever I was visiting San Francisco and I didn't know where I was going.
Yeah.
Yes, it looks like that's a Pro feature
Okay.
only. Precision dual frequency
Dual
GPS.
band GPS. Yeah. So it's in the watches and in the Pro iPhone.
Well, if you could just get lost in the wilderness for us, just for the sake of science.
Well, no, satellite. We should be clear. The satellite SOS is not available yet. That
But you could
feature
use
is not turned on yet.
your GPS if they will help you.
I could
When you
use
get
my
your-
GPS
yes,
to
get
figure
back.
out where I am. Yes, and I could even use
don't do
my
that.
my Apple Watch to do some of that
That's
stuff
right.
too. But
That's right.
no, satellite SOS is coming later
Well,
on.
here's an interesting question. I don't think about this one as well. Based on your usage so far, this is Agent Monroe again. Would you be tempted to display your phone more prominently on your desk for the always-on display if you were using the 14 Pro? What's your like? I'm fascinated by this because with the always on and the widgets compared to the widgets on the watch, I'm still like, trying to figure out like, well, do I have the same information on the phone? And then is the phone like another display now where I always have that information available, but it still only refreshes once a second?
Yeah, or
If
yeah,
that.
and really it's refreshing a lot less than that in terms of refreshing the data. I think it's entirely going to be based on how you use your phone. For me, I don't even keep my phone near my desk. I keep it on a charger in the other room when I'm in here working at my desk. But if I'm somebody who keeps my phone with me, or if I'm going out and I keep my phone on the table, right? Like there are scenarios where you're going to think about, would this be a nice piece of information? But you can see on the video here, what do I really have here? I would have if I was playing audio, I'd have a now playing status down at the bottom. I've got some widgets. I've got the time and another widget.
Do notifications come in on the always on? Like, if you get a text, will it pop up?
Yeah. If it'll pop up in the little, well, I think if you get a text, it'll actually light up.
Okay. Well, that
And then
makes
it'll
sense. So
go
it does that
down and
anyways.
it'll stay
Yeah.
there. Whatever's visible in the stack of notifications will stay there in the dimmed state.
Yeah. Okay.
So it works just like an existing iPhone works, except that when it goes back to dim, it doesn't shut off. It just goes back to this interim
This sort of
kind of dimmed
Yeah.
state that we've got right here. So, I just gave the ultimate non-answer. I mean, it really is like, if you're asking me personally, I don't think I would change my behavior because I'm sitting in front of a Mac and I don't bring my iPhone with me, but I can foresee scenarios where I was out with people where I might be more inclined to leave the phone face up on the table rather if I'm, for whatever reason, if I want to monitor what the time is or if I have a timer going off or whatever. But that's a real lifestyle thing. I think the truth is, right, it's going to be, this is not a universal panacea where suddenly everybody's using this feature. And
I conversely feel like I would feel more distracted by it. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious to know if I mean more like keeping it in my pocket or face down more because I don't want to be distracted.
Right. I can see. I mean, I think glanceability is a big thing. Like if you've got it on a table and it lets you look down without tapping on it to see what's going on, that's good. But you're right. It could also be distracting.
Mark asks, is anything actually under the screen? I heard the proximity sensor is under the pixels. I think that's correct.
Yes, the proximity sensor is under there.
It's really a circle and a dash, right? And then they're filling in pixels, right? Like the cutout is actually. Yeah,
I was gonna see if I can.
But it's hard to get a. It's probably hard to get a picture of that.
Yeah, if I can get an angle of it, I did at some point have an angle of it. But it's hard. Yeah, there's basically there's the long one. Oh, look, nice reflections. There's a long one and then the little cutout, and there's some pixels in between, and there are pixels above, and you can touch, you can touch on the dynamic island, and it's, I don't know whether the glass over those sensors is itself touch sensitive or if they're just mapping around them and knowing that when if you touch here right on that sensor, it knows that you touch right next to it and it treats it as a tap. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird stuff.
Patrick wants to know which one will Ted Lasso be using.
Only the best for Ted, I
Only
guess.
the
But they
best.
but they were
He's a pro
shooting
Mac.
this. He's a 13 user because they shot that third season already this summer
Mhm.
before the iPhone came out. So yeah, I think he's probably a 13 Pro Max guy. That's my guess.
Brance asks, in addition to the greatest brightness outside, do you find the 14 Pro to be brighter being used in general compared to the 13 Pro?
Haven't spent enough time with it compared to the 13 Pro. My 13 Pro is actually charging because it was almost out of battery, and I wanted to do some more comparisons. So I'm gonna have to look at that. That's a good question.
Does go to it's 2,000 nits, right?
Yeah, okay, so here's the thing is the Apple quotes those things, but like the
It is
2000 nits
maximum.
overdrive is really happening when the light sensor knows you're in very, very, very bright light. You basically have to be outside in bright sunlight. And even then when they talk about those the nits, they're talking about essentially when they're driving max brightness in an HDR context, so a photo or a video. Then they're driving it up. Otherwise not. So I think it's a little bit brighter. In general, that's the idea. I haven't done some head-to-head comparisons yet because, like I said, I'm actually charging up the old model so I can do that.
But they don't want to drive the brightness all the time either because that'll run down your battery. So
Well, exactly.
they want to manage that.
It's a huge battery drain. So they're managing it aggressively, and anybody who's used an iPhone, OLED iPhone outside knows they manage it aggressively. Sometimes like really aggressively, like you want to see something bright and it just makes it dim because it's like no,
I had that happen
I can't do
last
that.
night while I was sitting in bed for some reason. It dimmed the entire phone, and I kept adjusting the brightness, and it would not
Yeah,
drive it up.
yeah.
And
I think that's like a
and then it
heat
clicked on.
issue or
was,
something.
Yeah, something weird was happening there.
Yeah.
Steve asks, if we find Dynamic Island annoying/distracting, can it be disabled? I think you're out of luck, Steve.
Wow, can you disable the dynamic island? That is an interesting question. Where would that even be? Settings, dynamic island.
Does Dynamic Island has its own settings section?
It does not. I just searched for dynamic island and I didn't get anything. Display and brightness. No.
I'm going to guess no because it's an interface element, and Apple is not going to let you turn off an interface element. Is my theory. They're very proud of it, right? So they're not going to be like, Dynamic Island trips are optional.
Yeah, I mean it's basically the UI. So I think
right. Yes.
I think not. I think just like you can't turn off, I don't believe, like the little blue thing that says you're on a call or
right.
Like that's just it's part of the UI.
Well, let's see. A lot of always on questions. Zach asks, does the always on display turn off in low power mode?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good question.
I assume I believe
point, Zach.
I believe so. I believe in low power mode. Let's test it. Boom, it's gone. That's it. Yeah, low power mode because that's draining power. So it does absolutely.
So that goes with Joe's question directly after is always on display in shortcuts or focus yet? And the answer is no, but you could enable low power mode in focus if you want to turn the always on display off.
Yeah, or in shortcuts. Or enable sleep focus, which will also do it. So there are a couple ways that you can
you'll turn off all your notifications too, which is potentially downside. Rick wants to know if you've noticed if the pixels between the cutouts get used. I think that's where the recording microphone and camera dots are now, right?
Right. They are tucked right in there because there's just enough pixels for those little dots.
That's some efficient usage there, Apple. Let's see. Who else? What happens? Another Dan asks, what happens when reduce animations is on?
The answer is it doesn't affect the dynamic island.
There you go.
Because I just tested that. Reduce motion.
Hmm.
does not affect the dynamic island. I mean,
Okay.
maybe it does very slightly, but it would be extremely slightly. Oh, look, here's an example where now I'm playing something, and so you're going to get the now playing effect even when it's off.
Mm-hmm.
So
Um, does the I don't know would D oh dynamic island cameras sit lower than the notch, or do they like come down about the same amount? Is a question.
lower than the notch.
Okay.
They have definitely made some room up above the notch. And I like it. And people are like, "Oh, that's wasted space." It's like
Is it?
aesthetically, it's not wasted space because you're making it feel like it's part of the whole, and
Yeah.
that the dynamic island is floating in your UI. And if they stuck it all the way up at the top without those pixels there, I don't think it would be as good. Now, okay, there's a question about what about the massive heads-up display when you add a song to your up next queue in Apple Music? Well, no, because if you're in the app and you add a song to your up next queue, it doesn't do it. I just did that, but I know what you're
Dynamic island is
saying.
only for not the app you're in.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's if you're in an app, the app is using the whole screen for the UI. But just to follow this point, if I bring this phone back out here, since I unhooked it, I'm just sort of using it on camera. But if I flip the switch, let me see if I can hold this up a little further and if it'll autofocus. The ring silent switch that grows right out of the dynamic island,
Hmm.
and that's kind of fun. But if I add a song, I'm in music, right? So if I add this song to the up next, it just does the giant square because I'm in music. It's not trying to do that some other way.
Man, the personal why the other guy with the red t-shirt sounds so worse. Ouch.
Hmm.
Possibly because I'm
Because
running the audio is running through Jason's
because
computer and
we're
coming across
running through
compressed.
Skype, coming
Yeah.
across the internet, and I'm in person, and so we can't do it. We can't do it both.
Can't do both. Patrick wants to know what's stopping Apple from putting USB-C in their phones. The will to do so. I
Yeah,
think it's the only thing at this point.
I feel like that's coming.
I would bet on
And
next
that
year.
it
I feel good
yeah,
about that.
and it may just be that they work on this so long in advance, and we also know that there's some things that they try to repeat from year to year in order to save money. And yeah, that's my feeling is that they're going to be doing a bigger physical redesign next year. And one of the things they'll do with that is USB-C. I actually think one of the interesting things about this year is why aren't they doing 8K video? Like with that sensor, you could shoot 8K video. And I think the answer is one, they decided not to have like a 2 terabyte iPhone, which they totally could have done. And two, how do you get it off? And the
Yeah.
answer is very, very slowly over Lightning, which is not a satisfying answer. So I feel like they're laying some groundwork here. And then next year, we may see a phone that has that 48 megapixel sensor and shoots 8K video and has USB-C out and probably even goes up to 2 terabytes at that point. Like that, I think those all kind of like go together, and I don't think that they were ready to make that change now. But
Yeah.
it feels like it is.
The writing's on the
It's
wall. I mean,
coming. Yeah, yeah,
Lightning just hit its 10-year anniversary, I want to say, the other day,
yeah.
I think. So
And mark my word, when they go to USB-C, everybody's going to be like, "Why does Apple keep changing the
another change.
cable?"
It's
And
been 10
10 years. I know,
years. Yeah. They've only
I
done
know,
it
but
twice.
that
Like,
they will
yeah.
do that.
Anyways, and you've got a bunch of those now. Let's see. Is there a LiDAR sensor on the Pros? I believe
Yes.
yes. Yeah.
Yep.
They're not
Same.
taking anything away yet, but
And is there a setting akin to theater mode on the watch? I would say, yeah. I mean, you go into sleep mode, and that'll do it.
leader mode, sleep mode, same thing. You sleep at the theater, don't you?
But you should put your phone in your pocket anyway, and that's theater mode for your phone is that it's in your pocket.
Does the low battery warning show up in the dynamic island instead of a full screen pop-up?
I
Run it
have
down, Jason.
no
Run it
idea.
down right now.
Okay, I have
Max
no
those
idea.
cores out. Is the island's mini waveform animation distracting? I feel like it would be. Is it like because it actually generates when you're playing? It actually generates like a waveform of the audio, right? I thought they talked about that.
They do. it is a little distracting. I have a question about whether it will become more familiar, or whether, and this is a question for that accessibility setting, like, too, like, do you have the ability, will that setting do something like not show the waveform or something like that? Because it is a little distracting having the waveform burbling along right there, although theoretically you're also being distracted by the audio that goes with it. So is it distracting visually when you're also experiencing the audio that goes along with it? I don't know, but it's a good question. It could be. It could be.
There's a question about whether if iPhone goes to USB-C, will that eliminate the wired headphone option? There are USB-C headphones.
Yeah, they'll just do USB-C headphones,
and you'll probably be able to buy an adapter too. There's probably USB-C to 3.5.
Oh well, there I use that.
There already
I
is
use
one,
that for
right?
my iPad.
There you go. So there you go.
Yeah.
There you still have the option. I like the joking suggestion of replacing the SIM with a micro SD for video storage. Obviously not happening, but
Sure.
I think intended joke. I also enjoy
feedback.
the YouTube account, which disagrees with Jason's opinion about the
some,
new media
with a
progress
piece that
bar.
I wrote several weeks ago. Well, thank you for disagreeing. I disagree with your disagreement.
Steve asks about lock screen widgets only available. He is only getting Apple apps. What's he doing wrong? This is a problem. It's come up. I think in some cases you need to, first of all, you might need to launch the app. Second of all, you may need to reinstall it depending on when you installed the update. If you installed the update prior to iOS 16, in some cases, you might need to reinstall the app. So those are options to check out, because I did notice I downloaded updates and then went to the lock screen widget and they weren't there, and it turned out I had to open the app first. So try that.
Yes, you definitely have to open the app. You may need to reboot, and then the other
You
tip
need
that
to
I
reboot
wanted to
too.
share is that you may have to go for lock screen widgets, and you won't believe this. This is the carrot weather thing. You have to go to international to temperatures instead of to Celsius and then to Fahrenheit, or the reverse. You actually
Just to
toggle.
change something.
You just
That's weird.
and then they load. It's really weird.
That is weird. There's still some bugginess with that, but I imagine it will get worked out in the short term.
Yeah.
Question about is display zoom supported on the Pro model?
I believe so. I haven't done it, but I don't think they've changed any of those things. I don't think they're trying to take away any of that. So display zoom would still be there. I don't think it's any different from last time. Let me put
There's
it
a question
that way.
about reduced motion. We already covered that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Will the island be copied? Yes, of course it will. As MKBHD pointed out, it's sort of is based on a thing that happened before, and somebody's already done a hack for it. And yes, absolutely, I think you're going to see a generation of Android phones that try to artfully hide their cutouts with status displays. Why not? Did I see
purple phone too?
Somewhere that the volume buttons and the screen off button are lower on the 14 models? I'm a big fan of Apple moving the buttons. I'm going to need to take this case. Why do I keep putting the case back on? It's to tell them apart. So here's Pro Max. They are, I'd say, higher on the 14. Not lower. Oh, sleep button's lower. Volume buttons are higher. That's my answer for you. Very imperceptible almost, but they are. Anything else? We've been going about an hour. Probably should wrap it up.
I think we caught up. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think we're all caught up.
I mean, feel free to ask us more questions. If you're a Six Colors member, you can do it in our Discord. You can email us, Jason at sixcolors.com, Dan at sixcolors.com if you've got questions. When am I going to write this review? I honestly don't know. I mean, the challenge of being a second wave reviewer is all the reviews are already out. And so while this is fun because I'm able to provide this before everybody gets their phones tomorrow who ordered them, the impetus to do a fast review is gone because the reviews are already out there. So I'm gonna live with them, and you'll end up getting a little inside baseball, but you'll end up getting more of a reflective philosophical piece about the role that they play and what I like and what I don't like, and it will be a little less of a brass tacks review, because those are the embargo reviews. Or that is the time and the place to do the down to details review. Whereas mine's going to be more, you know, having spent time with it and what's the bigger picture for the iPhone and stuff like that. Because the reviews as news really only lasts a day, and then after that, people will search for that review for a long time, but it's a lot. It's a different priority, and so what I'm saying is I'm not going to rush to write a review in 3 days, because why would I do that?
There's reviews as news, and there's reviews you can use.
Yeah, that's right. And reviews that you can use are not news. You
That's
can
right.
use. They're different. And Dan, did we establish, are you getting a new phone?
I am. I'm getting a 14 Pro
14
in
Pro.
deep purple tomorrow.
Deep purple, right. So there you
Deep
go.
purple. There you
So
go.
so you will also have something to say
Yeah.
about the iPhone 14 Pro.
If UPS can make it down my street.
Something going on in your street, or is that
Oh, a
just
lot
in
of
general?
construction. A
Ah,
lot
I
of
see.
construction
I
in my
see.
town right now, and there have been several cases where packages have not been able to be delivered because they're like, couldn't get to you.
Yeah.
Like, great,
Sorry.
thanks.
Tried really hard.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here and watching this, and you can always get in touch with us in the usual locations. And Dan, thank you for joining me.
And thank you, Jason, and everybody subscribe to Six Colors because then you'll get more great content like this.
Yeah, and we do a bunch of video Q&As and stuff for members too on top of this, but we do some for free too, and this is one of them. Bye, everybody.